Hello, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for joining us for the second webinar in our series on preparing for the automotive restart. Today, we will be getting a Mexico perspective and are very excited to have with us Manuel Montoya. Manuel comes to us with over 20 years of experience in the automotive industry within Mexico. Currently, he is the managing director at the automotive cluster in Nuevo Leon, and he also presides as the president of the network of automotive clusters in Mexico, which includes 9 clusters across the country. A quick background on ALS and a few housekeeping items before we get started. ALS is a privately held, family-owned business with deep roots in transportation. We're a Transport Topics top 100 provider in the US, and we have over 25 years of experience in logistics. Beyond ALS, the Parker family's reputation in transportation goes all the way back to 1927 when they were known as Parker Motor Freight. Today, we are headquartered in Jackson, Michigan, and we have operations and warehouses and offices here in Michigan, as well as Laredo, Texas, where we serve our customers' Mexico and cross-border needs. It's all that experience that we're very excited for today's presentation, and we hope to provide some value and give you some tips on how you might prepare for a successful restart. For our attendees today, you have the ability to ask questions through your Microsoft Teams chat. All participants will be muted throughout the presentation, and at the end, we will try to answer as many of those questions as we can. We'll also be recording and posting this webinar on our website for future viewing. So with that, I will hand it over to Manuel, and we will get into the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here sharing these ideas with you. I hope some of these ideas can be helpful at this moment that we are having so many changes. It's a very tough moment that we are all suffering around the globe, and specifically in our industry and in our region. We have been having some very tough weeks, and it seems that the next weeks ahead will be like this. I have this general agenda for today's meeting. I will start talking about a perspective of the industry during and after the COVID. Then the big question: when will the industry restart? No? We have been having talks with the government in Mexico, and I know the associations in the US also are doing their part. And we are still without knowing exactly when this will start. So how are the companies preparing themselves? This is a very important thing, because one of the big tasks is to bring back people to the plants, and they need to come in a safe way, to work safe, and to go back to their homes safe. And the fourth question is there hope ahead? It's something that we want to talk a little bit after this talk. Can we go to the next slide, Matt, please? So we're going to start giving a big overview of how do we look the automotive industry during and after COVID. Obviously, this is there are some things that are opinions. No? Nobody knows exactly what will happen, but this is a perspective. One can be more optimistic or less, more pessimistic, but we have to put scenarios in front of us to make decisions. First of all, there's a perspective for Mexico, and Nuevo León is the state where I am. The capital of Nuevo León is Monterrey. Maybe for some of you it's easier to know Monterrey than Nuevo León. How do we see the numbers in a very optimistic way? Is that the income, the gross product will go down for 4.3 less than last year. This is a very optimistic perspective, but it's the point of start. Some people are saying that Mexico will go down up to 10% in their GDP. So something around that between -4 and -10 will happen. It means that today we are planning to lose 260,000 employments, and in our state we are thinking that we are going to lose 35,000 people in our workplaces, and our GDP will go down a little more than the rest of the country because we are very dependent on the American economy, and you know that the American economy is going in a very, very tough moment. I heard just today that there are 30 million people without job in the US, unemployed after this crisis. So should we go to the next slide, please, Matt? Okay, so when are the plans planning to restart? This is something unsure. Even there are some dates that we have been chasing through the media and the announcements of some of the OEMs, but you'll see that maybe earlier they were thinking to restart during April, end of April or beginning of May. There are very few of them that are still planning to restart next Monday. So if you go through this chart, you'll see that most of them are going to the 11th or to the 18th of May. So it means that we are going to still have between 1 or 2 extra weeks of stoppage. In Mexico is something quite similar. They were thinking of restarting on 4th of May, but today they are moving their plans to go up to the 18th of May. This is something that, for example, General Motors had announced yesterday. They are planning to open their operations in Mexico on the 18th. Kia, for example, that is based here in Nuevo León, they are saying they are planning to start in 17th of May, and so on. The big thing is, the big question is if they are going to be able to start in Mexico, because as you know, one of our big problems today is that in the US, the auto industry is considered essential, and in Mexico it's not. So it means that even if in the American OEM plants start, the Mexican counterparts cannot send components because they are not able to work today, as the law is there. But we're going to talk about this later on. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what is happening in the world during the COVID dates? If you see the first chart in China, is what had happened, and I think China is a good example that we had to look at if we want to know how will industry go in the next months, because they are 2 months ahead on us, because COVID started in China at the end of December, and a big stoppage was in February and part of March. As you see, the selling in China in February went down very to the low bottom of -80%. March was not as bad, but was -46. So I think April will be better, and little by little is going on up to the regular numbers. It will take some time, but you see that China is already past to this big difficult moment. If you go to Western Europe, you see that they started a little bit earlier than us, maybe a couple of weeks before, and March was already a very bad month for selling cars. You see that there are 51% less of sales compared with March of last year. Korea is an example similar to China. They are quite faster recovering their market because they had controlled COVID better than China and other countries. But even though in February they sold 18% less than the earlier year, but March was 10% more. So it looks like Korea is doing quite well. And the US, you see that in February was a good month for selling cars, but March we have already minus 39% of cars sold. What will happen is that maybe in April will be less than 50% of regular sales for a regular April. So can we go to the next slide? So going up to see the big picture, we'll see that there will be a very low number of cars sold during this year. Some people are calculating around 57 million cars, and other more optimistic around 70 or 68 million cars in the whole world for this year. But if we go to the year 2008 and 2009, there was a similar crisis for our industry like what we are seeing for this year. Some people, they think they will be worse than that year, but that year was already a very bad moment for the auto industry in the world. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this crisis is different than the earlier one of 2008, 2009. It will be more difficult because, as I mentioned to you, today we have already 30 million people in the US without job. They lose their jobs, and these people will not, obviously they will not buy cars and they will not buy many things, and so the economy will feel it very, very deeply. Can we go to the next one? So this is, as I mentioned, we had to see scenarios. No, this consultancy, American consultancy company, LMC Automotive Limited. They made 3 scenarios: the optimistic, the pessimistic, and a regular one, a medium. But they put in the black line is what they are expecting. I think is quite optimistic. In the worst case scenario, they're thinking about the 57 million cars to be sold in the whole world, instead of 90 that we sold last year, or 95 that were sold in 2017, where we have our peak. But well, so any company has to look at their different scenarios and see how many cars and components they're going to sell to their customers. And obviously, if we see the car sales, they will let us know how will be the industry for the whole value chain. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this decline, where will it come from? You see, if we part from the 90 million cars that were sold in 2019, in North America, we're going to lose close to 5 million cars. I mean that if we sold close to 20 million this year, we are going to sell around between 40 and 15 million cars. But some people are more pessimistic and they're saying, no, in North America, we are going to sell between 10 and 12 million cars. So it's difficult to be more precise in this, but it gives you an idea that we all are going to lose market because of this economic crisis that is coming after COVID. We go to the next slide, please. And what will happen next year? Because this year this company is planning that we are going to lose 20% of our market. More pessimistic view thinks that we're going to lose 40%, so go to 57 million cars per year on this year. But next year they're thinking that we're going to recover 14%. Well, some people are thinking that these will be numbers for 2022 or 2023. Nobody knows. So there are different perspectives. I recommend to you to look after all other companies and make your own scenarios. No? So you have to plan for the different scenarios, but considering that the worst case scenario is something that may happen. Then let's see the next one, please. Well, what's the trend for the next months? What will happen? Obviously, April will be the lowest point. We all know that because the OEM plants are closed. May will be maybe not as optimistic as that line says, because we are seeing that the plants are still closed till medium of May. But so we are thinking that maybe by the end of the year, the volumes will go up again. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so as you know, we are a complex supply chain, and you'll see that you are ahead of the arrow. All the logistics on this are very important, because you are the link between the tiers, and the OEMs that are putting the pace will be followed by their OEM plants, part plants, and tier 1s and tier 2s and tier 3s. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned to you, to see what is happening in China is a good way to think what can we expect for our region. So what is happening in China? As you see, that the 4 first months of the year were very difficult for China production. Even April, when they already started, the volumes were low. They cannot start the full production. But if you see May, they are expecting to have a positive number in comparison with the May of last year, because the stocks are low and they had to recover the stocks. So maybe they will become a peak in June and go down again for July and August, because the stocks are already replenished. But then by the last 4 months of the year, numbers will be quite okay in comparison with earlier year. And it's because the stocks has to be replenished, and people will start buying cars again. So what can we expect for North America and Europe? Let's see in the next slide. In Europe, this is the perspective of LMC. They are thinking that the worst months will be April and May, but even June is a quite bad month. July and August will be negative in comparison with the earlier year. But then September is the month when they are expecting to have the recovery for the stocks again, and volumes will go up again. And okay, we are going to finish the year somehow in the same pace like the 2019. So what will happen in North America? Quite similar, but maybe with we move a 1 month over, and we are going to have our positive numbers by the last 3 months, October, November, and December. Let's go ahead. Okay, so if we go to the inventories of the OEMs, we'll see that the inventories will be moving quite interesting during these months. Obviously, the March was a bad month for sales, and inventories go up. No? You see that there are 95 days of inventories in the OEM plants and their dealerships. So what we expect is in April, they will go down because they close their factories, and any car they sold were from their stocks. So during April and May, the OEMs may keep close their factories without losing money, because they already have cars in their stocks. But maybe June will be needed to recover, because in percentage you see that it's good to have between 60 and 70 days of stocks. Something similar happens in Europe, no, with the stocks, and something similar will happen. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Another point of view are the new launches, the new models. Obviously, whatever was planned last year will have to be modified. And in average, they are thinking that we are going to move the launches of new models by around 2 months. Some launches are more important for the brands and others are less important, or in some cases they will prefer to move the launching to the next year. Maybe the model to 2021 will move to 2022 maybe. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, the auto parts industry in Mexico. What do our National Industry Association think about this? Last year we have a record year. We sold $97 billion in auto parts in Mexico. It was a very, very, very good year. But what we expect for this 2020, that we go down a little bit more than 40% to 57 billion. This is a very, very bad news for our country because our industry is the one that supports the Mexican economy today. There are four industries that are more important for Mexico to make dollars. First one is the auto industry, then comes the money that comes from the Mexicans that work in the US and sends their money back to their homes in Mexico. Then tourism and the oil. But tourism and oil are in a very bad moment. I think they are going to lose, and they were not going to help our economy. And the same that will happen to the American people will happen to the Mexican people that works in the US. They are going to lose, and they are losing their jobs. So the auto industry will be the one that can support a little bit the Mexican economy. But with these numbers, that will not be very, very good news for our government and our economy. So let's take a look to the next slide, please. So when are we going to restart operations? This is a very, very difficult question. Maybe in the last 3 weeks, we have been having discussions between the auto parts and associations of OEMs with the governments in the US and in Mexico, because as you know, in the US, the government considers the auto industry as an essential industry, but in Mexico, no. That means that we cannot work. There's a prohibition to work during these days of the pandemic crisis, because the government says that the auto industry is not essential. So this has been the big problem during these last weeks, because the OEMs in the US are planning to start operations, but in Mexico they cannot start their operations, and their suppliers in Mexico cannot start. So last week, finally, our Mexican national associations, the MIA, that is the OEM associations, the AMPAC is the Heavy Truck Association, and the INA, that is the Auto Parts Associations. The three presidents, they have meetings with the federal government in Mexico, with the economy secretary, Dr. Marquez, and with the Councilor Ebrard. And finally, they accepted to open and to allow us to work, but with a condition to have the official letter from the American government. They want Lighthizer to send a letter saying that they are ready to start operations in the US, and they will allow our Mexican companies to start operations. But that had not happened. This meeting was last Friday, and today we had not any resolution from the American government. And here in this slide, you'll see there's a letter written just yesterday from some senators directed to Mr. Pompeo, asking them to open the operations and to let Mexico to open their operations. As you see this, what I put here, as Mexico continues its own shutdown of non-essential activities to reduce the spread of COVID, it has become clear that our integrated supply chains will continue to suffer disruptions unless the Mexican government clarifies its definition of essential business. We particularly urge you to press at your Mexican counterparts to incorporate industries provided components to the food, medical, transportation, infrastructure, aerospace, automotive, and defense sectors into their guidance. Consistent direction from Mexico to its manufacturers will improve the U.S. economy because our domestic companies will find it easier to secure alternate sources for their products. So it's clear that the American industry and your government needs our government to open our operations. We are very codependent. We cannot say that the US can start and Mexico can be closed. That is not possible. 30% of the content of the cars produced in the US is produced in Mexico. So it means that you cannot complete any vehicle in the US without Mexican parts or parts produced in Mexico. But I think the problem is now not just in Mexico. As you heard, and you people that are in Michigan, you know that unions are pressing your own government not to open operations till they are very more secure on the COVID. And it's another pressure that the American government has because they cannot say, well, let's open, and they will press Mexico, but they had to press the Michigan government to open their operations. And the Michigan government will have the pressure of their unions, mainly the auto industry union. So, as you may see, this had become a political problem, and sometimes for the economy it's not very good to have political problems around because there are other interests around that may pull the thing ahead or not. So let's go to the next. Sorry if I haven't answered the question because I don't know and nobody knows exactly when our operations will start. But what we already all know is that we had to be prepared to restart operations. Any company of this industry or any other essential industry has to be sure that the people goes from their house to their factory in a safe way, stay working the whole day in their company in a healthy way, and to return home without any health problem. So I have here, I wanted to show you a protocol that one of our companies had made, the Metalsa protocol. I'm not able to show it right now, but if you go to the link, you will see the video that Metalsa prepared for their workers. In general, what any protocols of this are saying is you have to ensure the health condition during all the trajectory of the person from their house to their factory during the whole day and return home without any problem. So you have to ensure, for example, the healthy conditions for the transportations, the buses that takes people from their homes to their factories. For that, the buses cannot take a full load of people. In this case, they will take only half the people that can be on a bus, but one seat with someone and another seat will be empty, and so on. Obviously, when they arrive to their company, before entering to the factory, they had to measure the temperature. They will have to put their distance between the people to be sure that there will not be contact between the people. In the working places, they will need to sanitize before the people start working, and during the hours they will have to clean their working place. And the dining rooms, for example, cantinas, they will need to sanitize. And when the people goes to eat, they will have to make different moments, and maybe to, instead of having an hour for the whole people to eat, they will have different shifts so that the people, less people will enter to the cantina to have their dinner, their lunch, and so on. So these are the kind of things that companies has to ensure before starting operations. In our cluster, for example, we took 15 of these protocols and we make a checklist that we share with all the other companies of our cluster. We are around 100 companies. So, so that any company before restarting operation has to go through that checklist and see if they are able to start operations in a safe and healthy way. Can we go to the next slide, please? Well, is there hope ahead? Is there any opportunity, or should we go to sleep and wake up in 2021? What will be better? Well, we all know that sales will drop down between 40 to 50% in this year versus last year. Maybe there are going to be 2 or 3 years to recover our latest situation. Nobody knows, but what we know is that sales will go down in a very important way. But 1st of July, we all know that the TMEC or USMCA will start. Why I'm putting this like a good thing? Because I think that the TMEC will force the companies to localize more content in their vehicles and their parts. As you know, the new treatment encourages and forces the companies to include more North American content to their vehicles and the parts. In NAFTA, there were no rules for the tier ones, but today we are going to have content rules for the tier ones. So it means that many things that today are being produced in Asia and Europe will have to be produced in North America, in Canada and the US, or in Mexico. We are talking between 10 and 12.5 extra content per vehicle. So this is a lot. And there are going to be a lot of new opportunities for the local suppliers to integrate more content in the vehicles and the parts. So this extra content, we had to go through this, and maybe it will be a good number of opportunities. And in our region, we see mainly for the tier 2 companies. And there's another phenomenon that we have been hearing in the last weeks, is what we are calling the regionalization of production. So after COVID, we see that the chains have suffered a lot, because first, when the COVID started in China, we're not able to import components from China. And after China, we were not able to import things from Europe, from Spain, from Italy, and so on. So, and this phenomenon will come. I'm saying this because some of our companies are telling us they are receiving a lot of requests for quotations from North American companies, because they are planning to buy in North America things that today are buying from China, from Thailand, from Vietnam, or from Europe. There's hope. I mean, we are going to sell less cars, but we are going to sell more per car. Huh? This is my message. And the other, and I'm thinking about the logistics companies like ALLs, is that you are going to be able to get different kind of business, because before you were moving maybe full truck loads, and now we are going to move more consolidated trucks, because companies will need to continue moving things, but they don't want to move trucks with half loads. So maybe we had to think on different kinds of being more efficient in the movements as companies. Maybe we had to consolidate materials from different companies and something like this. The next slide, please. Matt, I think is the next slide. Matt, and I think it's all, no?
All right, that concludes. And I think we have some time left to get some question and answer, so I will look in the Q&A here. So Manuel, the first question that we have is, what strategies can auto part makers in Mexico take right now to manage their declining demand with their transportation budget?
Well, it's a difficult thing because first of all, if they have, for example, some companies they have their own trucks, and they have some companies to work for them. So maybe they want to continue working with their own trucks in the first moment. So there will be less business for some truck companies. Others, maybe they were, as I was mentioning to you, maybe moving full truck loads every day, and then maybe they will have to move full truck loads once per week or two times per month. So there will be less movements. And the third way is something that we have been doing in the last year with ALS as a cluster and with our companies, is how we can consolidate movements between different companies. See, some companies, their parts or the components, what they move are very bulky, but they are not so heavy. And the other way around, there are some companies that move things that are very heavy, but they don't occupy a lot of volume. So if we are able to put both things in the same truck, we can be more efficient. This is the kind of things we are starting to replan because we need to be more efficient with the movements of trucks today. And as a cluster, we have a supply chain committee where we share this kind of information, and we are trying to match what we bring, for example, from the Midwest to Mexico, and try to share transportation for our suppliers. So this is kind of strategies that we had to think about, because full truck loads will not be as much and as regular as before.
Good insights. Thank you, Manuel. We got, I think, time for one more. So this question is, do you see issues with compliance to trade documentation creation, knowing that the workforce in Mexico will be cut and companies won't have all the trade compliance specialists we've had in the past? So is this something that shippers and consignees need to be more focused on in managing their coordination between parties, customs brokers, etc., to make sure they have proper documentation? And do you see any other issues within other departments because of the reduction of the workforce?
Yeah, there will be a reduction on the workforce, but I think the foreign trade people and the specialists will have a lot of work because USMCA is starting, and there are going to be more rules to comply, and the specialists will have to be more specialized. And I think these kind of jobs will be needed. And if companies has to cut people, they are not going to cut this kind of workplaces, because the specialization in trade will be more needed today with a new USMCA treatment. So I think for the time being, there will be a lot of job on this, and it will be good for the people that are in this area, for them to be more prepared. We have to understand the new rules. They are just to be shared by the governments. we had to restart and to relearn how the trade between the US and Mexico will have to be. There will be more papers to comply, there will be more conditions to comply, and so on. In the case of the truck companies and logistics companies, the same thing will happen, because you will need also your specialization in trade will be needed from both sides, from the logistics company and from the companies that move their components and their supplies. So I think there will be a lot of work on this area, and I hope that you will be very in a safe situation. Thanks, Matt. Thanks to everybody.
All right, well, thank you, Manuel, and thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. We are glad that we were able to share this Mexico perspective with you today. We believe it's critical that we all continue to stay educated of what's happening across the global supply chain, and that we really rally together as one automotive industry. We believe this rally really takes place with a higher purpose. We talked about it on the first webinar, and that higher purpose is to support our global economies and ultimately all of our livelihoods. At ALS, our purpose is to deliver an epic experience. And right now, to us, that means being your advocate through these challenging times. So for us, our mission is to do everything we can to support a successful restart. We owe it to ourselves, our families, and our country's economies to get this thing started right away. Our supply chain is the key to our nation's recovery. So let's act fast and deliver everyone an epic restart. Thank you.
Thank you. Listo.